In February, we moved to Mexico. We needed a reset, and honestly, it's been great. If you're new to us, Peter and I have been helping others share their gifts with the world since 2014. We started in health coaching and then moved into business coaching. Now we do a blend of the two with a spiritual approach. Here is a little look into our simple life living in Mexico and working full time, helping others with our gifts. Okay, we're running late. We are getting ready to go see this awesome garden in Todos Santos.
We're leaving the house earlier than we would normally prefer. We have been trying to wake up earlier, but this morning it was just not happening as much.
Yeah, so we're gonna get out of here and hopefully we can show you some of the garden. And I think like the thing that I'm really excited about is it's all like an edible garden. So it's all like fruits and vegetables. And if we do end up staying here long term, like I would love to have our own garden. So it's gonna be really cool to see what he's growing and just like learn from him.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're gonna go do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we're about to do the mastermind call tonight.
So I run a Soulful Women's Business Mastermind, and we meet every other Tuesday. And tonight, Peter is our special guest. So he's going to come and share some of his coaching wisdoms, insights to really help us ladies stay aligned with what we want to attract.
Yeah, they need a little help every once in a while, you know.
We
so I
all
come
do.
in, you know, and grace them with my presence.
We'll see if he gets an invite back. No, everybody's really excited to have him. A lot of the women in my mastermind have been part of our community for, I don't know, I would say anywhere from 7 to 6 months brand new, but a lot of people who have known us for a long time. So they always get really excited about seeing Peter and what's going on and stuff.
Yeah, well, it'll be kind of nice because I don't get to see a lot of these people since Sarah does most of the coaching. So it kind of works out. One thing that we were talking about is how a lot of us are really wanting more money, for example, right? But what's interesting about money is like there's a reason why you want the money. There's something that the money is going to do for you that you could actually have right now. So you actually don't really need the money, which is good. You don't want to need the money and to be attached to the money, right? Because that's also manifestation basics. So it's figuring out, just as a starting point, it's like, why do I want the money? What is the money going to give me? Because it's like, we used to have this mentality in our business where we're like, well, once we have more money, then we'll fill in the blank.
I think it's important to explain that our life didn't always look this way. I remember when we first started our coaching business, helping others, and we lived in this 1-bedroom apartment in San Diego. And I remember Peter was still working at his job, and I would just spend all day trying to grow our business, trying to get people interested in free ebooks, free guides, free information that I thought was so good. And I couldn't understand why people weren't interested. I was using so much force. And the saying is true. Hindsight really is 2020, because looking back now, I can see all of the issues with how I was operating. But at the time, I literally had no idea why it wasn't working.
We were just working all the time. At that point, we were working kind of like I was working my job, I was working afterwards. Sometimes I was working before I would go to my job. And then the weekend, we were almost always working Saturday and Sunday. And we really had this thought, this idea of the whole thing where it's like, we need to make money. And then once we make money, then we can relax. And so the problem with that was we were just working all the time. And at the beginning, we had all that energy and we were able to do it. Right. And I think that's very common. We see that so much. But when you continue to just go at that level, eventually you're like, I want to take a break. But then you have this belief, I can't take a break. And so it was very problematic for us.
Yeah, that was really our story. And with our clients now, I kind of see the same thing, this mentality that once I have this, then I can do this. It's not always about money, but that's kind of the topic of this video. So that's what we're talking about. But you might apply it to something else in your life where it's like, I'm not allowing myself to have the thing that I want until I reach this goal.
Yeah, and that is really kind of that was our big realization with what we were doing, and what was so problematic with it is because like what we want to feel from all of our efforts is available to us like right now. Like it was always available to us. So we could have allowed ourselves to just relax, to take breaks, to not feel like we have to rush through things and just be continuously working like all throughout the week. And so it's really it's being the vibration of what you really want to have in your life, how you want to feel. You can feel that way right now. It's just a matter of allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to do that.
So, we want to answer some of the questions that are coming through from our community. So, we get a lot of you guys reaching out, wanting to know, okay, how can I do this? How can I live this? And I think answering some of these questions, we'll kind of see how we've applied this to our own business because it's really special when you have a gift and you're like, I want to help people with this gift. We think that is one of the coolest things that you can do in the world, but sometimes it can be frustrating along the way. So I'm going to get the questions. Okay, the first question. Miss Sarah, maybe you can help me change my mindset on this. I find myself wanting to help people so much that I also chase them down to try to help them rather than patiently waiting for them to come to me and ask for my help.
Hmm.
What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, well, yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of anxiousness, feeling very, very antsy, right, so to speak, around like I need to do this, right, and that is like you choosing that you want to help. That isn't them needing help or requesting help or really just like attracting help. That's you pursuing somebody to help. And I think you're going to find that you'll have better results when the you're in kind of like the latter, right? Where somebody's like, oh, like I really need help. And then you're like, oh, hey, and then you can kind of come in and be like, I'm here, and kind of like a lot more like allowing it to happen, right? Rather than pursuing it.
Yeah, 100%. I think less attachment to helping a certain person, maybe who isn't ready for help. It's so much easier to help people who are looking for help. And so the thing that I often hear is, well, how do I find people who are looking for help? Well, again, it's kind of the reverse. It's like, what if you just start sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, how you can help people and allow them to come to you? And one exercise that I like to do is in the morning, I sit down and I ask myself, how do I feel called to help today? And sometimes that looks like helping in my relationship. Sometimes it looks like helping a friend navigate challenges. Sometimes it looks like sharing my message, what I'm most excited about, what I'm seeing on social media. Sometimes it's making a video. So I just kind of check in. I'm not like, hey, let me go search for somebody who I can help, but it's more so like, what do I feel called to do? What's that guidance coming through for me? And then I allow people to come to me. And that's literally how we've been able to help so many people is simply by using this method of tapping in and focusing first on what we feel excited about sharing with the world and the people in our world and not judging it. Because I think that's another thing. I think that sometimes as coaches or as spiritual people, it's like, oh, it doesn't count if it's a friend. I've heard this so much over the years. I'm only helping people I know. So that makes it less, right? And it's like, well, that's kind of crazy because I don't think, your soul really cares who you're helping. It just wants you to be helping and sharing your gifts. And honestly, it feels just as good to help somebody you know as somebody you don't know.
Yeah, that's more of like it's the voice of like, oh, but I'm not charging my friends or my family or my neighbors or whoever is like more familiar to you, and it's like, well, like Sarah said, like honestly, like what does that matter? And like that's kind of how it starts off, anyways. It's very natural. And the beauty of working with these people is you get like very quick uh, feedback right away. Whereas if you started out and you weren't working with people that were super familiar to you and close to you, you wouldn't get as much honest, direct feedback as you're going to get. So we see a lot of people start off and they're like, kind of like helping their family, and then they're like feeling like they're like the feedback is like they're feeling like attacked, they're feeling very like vulnerable, or what they were expecting is not what actually happened, right? And but these people, they want the best for you. And I think it's also just knowing that, like, if this is what you're supposed to be doing, don't let these people get you down either. And I think the most important thing is going back to what we started with, where it's like, don't pursue people to fix and to change that you think need to change, right? Because if they're not available, and wanting your help, then your help isn't going to make any difference. It's not going to be helpful. It's just going to be kind of annoying.
Yeah, this reminds me, we have a guide coming out. It's called Be a Spiritual Guide, and it covers some of these principles. Maybe we can put some of the principles we'll be covering on the screen. It's free, and I think it's gonna be really helpful if you find yourself doing what Peter was just talking about, where you're like, "Oh, this person could use a lot of help, and, like, I know I could help them." This is just gonna give you another perspective on it and a way to actually help them and help yourself so much more. So, if you are interested and you wanna check this out, you can put "guide" in the comments, and when we publish it, we'll let you know, so then you can download it. 'Cause I think that would be really helpful. Okay, another thing that I wanted to share that I think would be really helpful and would have been nice to know when I was first starting out sharing my gifts and calling in money in abundance and doing this work full time or transitioning to doing it full time was, when it comes to helping people, a lot of the people that you're going to help aren't going to pay you. But then there'll be a few people that pay you over and over and over again. They want to work with you long term. They want to buy all of your programs. They want to come to all of your things. And so I think sometimes we can tell ourselves, like, oh, I'm helping all these people and they're not paying me. So that means like I'm not going to be taken care of. But at the end of the day, it usually doesn't work like that. And in our case, and with a lot of our clients, like you usually have some people who are willing to pay and they're able to pay, and some people who aren't. And it evens out and it all works out. But when we try to like manage it and we say, oh, this doesn't count and this doesn't count, it's such a waste of energy. It's a waste of our gift. And then I kind of feel like it's like, why am I only helping people who can pay me? Or why am I feeling like this person is worth more? It's just, it gets kind of weird and convoluted. So, not a big fan of that. So, I just think it would be helpful to know, like, hey, it all works out in the end when you just focus on being of service.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that whole process is I can think of a lot of different stories of people that I've heard where they just start sharing their gifts. They just start helping people, and they're just doing it because they like to do it, and they're not charging people. They're almost like, "No, please, like don't pay me. I want to do this." Well, when they do it long enough, they're getting better and better as they go along, and they have no attachment to money, right? They're not even like asking for it. But then you get to a point where people are like, listen, this is so helpful, I have to pay you because I just feel like that's basically the level of your service, like I am so compelled to pay you for your service, and it's that helpful, and I really believe in it. It's like, okay, wow. And then, right, you put a pin in that and you think about how a lot of people starting out and they're like, they haven't worked with anybody, and they're just like ready to charge, and they're not working with their friends and their family, maybe even to begin with. So they don't really have a ton of experience. And it's just such a big contrast. It's like you've got the person who's just like, they're just effortlessly allowing like their experience of helping other people in the world. And then you've got, you know, other people that are really trying to kind of like accelerate it and force it. And they have an expectation and an idea of what it's going to look like when they're sharing their gifts with the world. So, not that that's a bad thing, but you can see kind of the difference. And that is kind of like the spectrum, really, you know. So, most of us are probably somewhere on that. But yeah,
I think one thing with that story that you can kind of take away and apply is how is your energy around sharing your gifts and around money? Because the first person that Peter talked about, I don't know about you, but when he was telling that story, I could really feel that person's energy of like, hey, like, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to do this. Like, don't worry about it. Right. Whereas the second person felt kind of like, the struggle, like the force, like the expectation, kind of like the entitlement, right? I'm entitled to like get paid for this and to get the praise. And so I think just paying attention when it comes to the work that you're doing in the world and just checking in, how is your energy around it? How is your vibration and your frequency? And like, could you use some more lightness and joy around the work that you're doing in the world right now?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
let's do the next question. This one's a little bit longer. So it says, hey, Sarah, I thought it would be best if I just DM'd you. Recently, I've been wanting to start my own online side makeup business. With everything as expensive as it is, it's hard living paycheck to paycheck. I finally found something I want to be part of, but I'm stuck in the negative mindset of what others will think or any judgments. I know in my heart I need to do this for myself and my family. That is number one, but I can't bring myself to do it. Long story, but I've had people I love and care about leave me for reasons of their own nature, feelings they had about themselves that I got projected on. I know I'm a good person. I love hard. I care. I'm always there for people. And then I feel like I suffer from the pain and lose out on things that make me happiest in life because of it.
I think that it's common to be afraid of recreating the past, you know, what you had perceived in the past. And I think that in this instance, it feels like, well, I'm afraid of doing this because I might push people away, right? Yeah. I think that having the awareness around this can help you realize that, you know, what the past actually can never repeat itself, right? First of all. And that if you believe that, it's going to prevent you from doing this thing that you really want to do, you're really excited to do, you feel like you are supposed to be doing this. And that would be such a bummer, you know. And I think that that happens so much, where people want to do something but they're so afraid of having the past repeat itself, right? Now, if you believe that the past is going to repeat itself, what are you going to find? It is going to happen because you are in that pattern, right? And so now you're like, you've developed this conditioning where now you are expecting a particular outcome, right? So that's kind of a generalization, but for this person who really wants to start their business, yeah, I think that it's absolutely possible. And I think it's having awareness of, where is this coming from? Why do I believe this? You know, and trusting that you can move forward and you can also heal what has occurred before.
100%. Another thing that might be helpful is rewriting the past. So looking at the past and seeing how, even though certain people leave our lives, like, and it can hurt and it can be painful because we really like them or we valued them, there usually is a reason why that happened, right? And that's up to us to decide, hey, what is the reason? Why aren't they in our life anymore? And maybe, exploring that and seeing, because if you can see your past as not a bad thing, as not a mistake, then it's going to be so much easier to move forward because you're not going to be carrying that baggage with you into this new venture. So I think a lot of times people are, like Peter was saying, afraid to repeat the past. And he mentioned, you can't repeat the past because you're changing and you're growing and you're evolving. So it's not possible anymore. But also, if you see the past as like, oh, like that person left and like, they actually like weren't super supportive of me, and like now I have more people who are supportive in my life, so it's going to be so much better. It's just going to be so much easier to move forward with what you want to do. The last thing that I'll share, on this is one thing that I really had to remind myself of. So, um, last year I started experiencing Bell's palsy and I had this fear of showing up. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I've shown up so long and I've looked a certain way and people only like me because I look a certain way, right?" Just like this crazy story. And I just kept getting stuck in this fear cycle, this worst case scenario. And so I wrote down this quote or just this question, this reminder like, am I going to choose fear, right? Which is like worst case scenario. For this person, it might be people are going to leave me, or am I going to choose love, which is best case scenario and faith. And every time I would see that quote, I put it on my wall, I thought about it, I was like, no, I'm going to choose love. I'm going to move forward. And I would just take one step forward. And it was so helpful. So that might be another thing that you check in with. Like, are you operating from fear or are you operating from love? Because at the end of the day, if you really want to grow your mission, your message, your business, operating from love is the way to go because love is the most powerful emotion of all. It's more powerful than fear. Okay, thanks so much for sending me questions. I always love hearing from you guys. Peter does too. If you follow me on social media, you can send me questions for our next video. Or if you're watching this video, like, and you have a topic or a subject you want us to cover, put it in the comments. Like, we would love to answer that in our next video.
If you only take away one thing from this video, let it be that you can feel the way you want right now without needing money for it. For Sarah and I, that means we can choose to feel relaxed now. We can slow down when we need to, take as many breaks as we like, and give ourselves permission to be in a state of harmony while also making a difference in the world.